Not even holding the microphone. I was going to say microwave. I am out of it today, my friends. Hello and welcome to Bites of History with Irene Walton. I am your host, Irene Walton. Thank you guys so much for joining in to our volume 2 of Crumbs of History.
Have you ever wondered how it made it to your table? Have you ever wondered how it made it to your shelf? If you love food, then this is the show for you. Bites of History with Irene.
So if you guys didn't know about Bites of History until I put it on YouTube, I have probably I think maybe 20 episodes or so that are just in the, Apple Podcast catalog, Spotify catalog that I didn't have video with. One of those was a type of episode that I started called Crumbs of History. So Crumbs of History it's an episode where I do a bunch of little stories instead of one big one, like the history of Starbucks or the history of Chef Boyardee. I do 4 or 5 things that I just find interesting and I think are fun to talk about. So today is our volume 2 of Crumbs of History. I just want to start this episode out by saying a huge thank you to all of my patrons. If you guys are a little producer or a little cook or anywhere in between, those are some of the names of my tiers, if that wasn't clear. The little producer tier is only $2 to get into, and it's such a beautiful show of support, and I really, really appreciate it. It's been really exciting to see a lot of new faces joining the Patreon, and I notice and I see it, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much. If you'd like to join, you can check it out right there. And if you guys want to sponsor an episode, which just means buying my coffee for when I research these, you can shoot me a Venmo donation right there. It's very, very sweet as well. But even if you were just sitting here watching with me, that means the world to me as well. So none of it goes unnoticed. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope you guys appreciate what I'm doing here too, because I'm trying very hard. Okay, so to start out with today's Crumbs of History episode, you guys know what we're going to do. We're going right up at the top, and we're going to thank our sources. Thank you to the clevelandclinic.org, webmd.com, 12tomatoes.com, thetakeout.com, smithsonianmag.com, dictionary.com, mayoclinic.org. We're talking about 5 topics today. We're talking about sweet potatoes versus white potatoes. We're talking about why can you eat rare steak and not rare chicken? You guys, in my little notes app that I have for podcast ideas, I must have written that down 8 times. I was very curious about it. So we're going to learn about it today. Oh my God, this is so interesting. We're talking about the cheese music taste test, which we'll get to it. We are also talking about the term, the hair of the dog that bit you. And finally, we're going to talk about if swallowing gum really makes it stay in your stomach for 7 years. The answer may shock you. To start out, we're talking sweet potato versus white potato. I am somebody who, if you guys didn't know this, quick trigger warning, talk of an eating disorder. If you guys didn't know this, I used to have an eating disorder and it was called orthorexia. And that means that you were obsessed with healthy things and healthy dieting and counting calories and over exercising, just terrible stuff. If you guys are going through anything similar, I strongly advise for you to get help. But I only bring that up because I used to be brainwashed into thinking that sweet potatoes equal good, white potatoes equal bad. So for a long time, I've just wanted to shut down every single person who's actually, they're so much better for you. Actually, they're so much healthier. Actually, sweet potatoes are better. I hate it. Mostly because I don't like sweet potatoes, but also I just hate that quote unquote, what's healthy, what's not mentality. It's just, it's very damaging and very scary. So we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about how sweet potatoes are literally barely at all better than regular potatoes. And also just taste wise, sweet potatoes are bad. Okay. First of all, sweet potatoes and regular, I'm going to switch between calling them regular potatoes and white potatoes because I keep mixing it up. So sweet potatoes and white potatoes are a lot further away in their genetic tree than we might think. We might think that just because they both have the last name potato that they're the same. They are not. So both the sweet potato and white potato are part of the nightshade family of fruits and veggies. A couple examples of nightshades would be eggplant or peppers, like ghost peppers, habanero peppers, poblano peppers. Tomato is a nightshade fruit. Now, I know there's always been a lot of a tomato's a fruit, this is a vegetable, what's the blah, blah, blah. Berries are actually, whatever. what I want to tell you, just before we start off, is the definition of a fruit and a vegetable, which sounds silly, but when you hear it, you might be like, oh, because that's exactly what I did. A fruit is the edible part of a plant that develops from a flower and contains seeds. A vegetable is any other part of the plant that is edible, roots, leaves, or stems. Potatoes are a nightshade vegetable. Tomatoes are a nightshade fruit. There you go. Okay, now we're going to get into the good part where I tell you the difference between white potato and sweet potato, because people like to act like a white potato is the worst thing you could ever eat, and it most certainly is not, as a very healthy and nutritious option. Thank you. A white potato in terms of calories is 159 calories usually, and a sweet potato is 103. Now, I hope that I'm not the first person who's telling you this. I hope this is not new information. Fewer calories does not equal healthier. So we're just going to get that right out of the way. However, okay, there are a couple more carbs in a white potato than a sweet potato, but there's also way less sugar. There is the same amount of fiber, double the amount of protein in a white potato than a sweet potato. Thank you very much. 4 grams in a white potato, 2 in a sweet potato. The fat is negligible. Now, the main difference, the reason that this sweet potato information has been conflated to the nth degree, that these are a billion times healthier. Can you guys tell how much I don't like sweet potatoes? This is also me being biased. I'm sure there's people who like both just the same, and they're like, okay, chill out. Sweet potatoes have a ton of vitamin A. So much vitamin A, it's crazy. So that's where that's all coming from. They have basically 22,000 IU, I don't know what that stands for, of vitamin A, and white potatoes have 17. Not 17,000, just 17. They have the same amount of vitamin C. They have the same amount of B6. White potato has almost double the amount of potassium, which, let's talk about something. Have you guys seen these like infographics about veggies and fruits and stuff? And it's like, did you know a kiwi actually has more potassium than a banana? Did you know that a potato actually has more potassium than a banana? Do bananas even have that much potassium? Where did that become the thing? Because so many things have more potassium than bananas, potatoes being one. White potatoes have double the amount of potassium as a sweet potato, pretty much. More magnesium, more iron, less calcium, and about the same manganese. So this is very aggressive. I recognize that, but I'm just wanting you to be pulled out of the trap that is like, oh, well, I got to get sweet potatoes because they're healthier. They're not that much healthier. They're healthier with vitamin A. So like everything's fine. So the next time you make your decision based on like what's gonna taste better, of course, go with the white potato because there's not very much difference, my friends. Now, if you are like me, you have wondered many a time, why can I have rare steak or steak tartare or like sashimi, like raw fish? Why can I have that be rare or raw even? And I can't do that with chicken. I've always wondered. I have never once looked it up. I don't know if you guys are like that. My secret hope a little bit is that this podcast sort of like answers the questions you think about, but you don't bother to look up. Here are the reasons that you can't eat raw chicken, but you can eat raw beef. What it basically comes down to is that the muscle structure is very different. So raw chicken has very, very permeable tissue. So any bacteria or pathogen that gets on the outside of chicken can very easily go through the whole entire piece of meat. Now, cow meat, on the other hand, is a lot denser and a lot harder to get through. So when you get a steak and you cook it rare, the pathogens that may be on the outside of it, when you sear it in that really hot pan, that's what kills them. I feel like I should put a disclaimer in here. Be aware of raw and uncooked meat. There is always a possibility of foodborne illness. This is not me advising you to eat raw or uncooked meat. I do it myself. That is my own personal risk. There we go. Disclaimer done. So basically, it's just a lot harder for the bacteria or the pathogens to permeate the beef. Now, something I did find out in my research that was actually so fascinating, though, in some restaurants in Japan, they actually do serve chicken sashimi. It's a very special type of chicken called a shamo chicken. It looks very interesting. I would try it in a heartbeat. I've heard it was described in when I was reading. People described it as pretty bland though. So it just seems like kind of like, okay, tastes like nothing. But it is a thing that happens in some places in the world. So that was very fascinating to me because I thought everywhere chicken was just like cooked all the way through. And also, anytime a digestive tract in an animal is disturbed during the butchering process, it's like a no-go. So a lot of the times chicken are not handled too well. So their digestive stuff gets around, bacteria gets around a little bit easier. And because that chicken muscle is so permeable, you just want to make sure that you are cooking it all the way through because you have no idea how deep that salmonella can go, how deep that E. coli can go, how deep whatever can go. So you just want to be extra careful. And when it comes to stuff like fish, like the reason we can have raw fish is because a lot of times fish are found in very, very cold waters, which already keeps the pathogen and bacteria like percentages low. And then even on top of that, most of the fish that we eat raw has been frozen, which is not a bad thing because that actually kills even more like worms and parasites that may be a part of the fish as well. So a lot of the reason we can eat raw fish or raw beef is because it's a whole muscle cut and it's just being taken from one thing. It's from one animal. There's been no disturbances, hopefully. And it's safer to eat because of that. I did do all of this research separately, but just to be sure, I wanted to reach out to my very hot butcher friend. His name's Jared Standing. If you guys are in Los Angeles, you have to go to his butchery. It's beautiful. They also do burgers. It's fantastic. But I wanted to ask just his professional opinion as a hot butcher. Like, what's the tea? Why can I have raw beef and not raw chicken? So he said, the main reason is the high risk of salmonella with chicken that's not present in beef or lamb or pork. Lamb tartare is common, but eating rare pork is also totally safe, even though some people are still afraid of it. For a long time, trichinosis was a possible problem while eating rare pork, but that hasn't been an issue since the 80s. As long as your pork is coming from a legit USDA inspected source and it's been tested and is trichina free. Thank you so much to Jared for helping us answer that question. That was awesome. Okay, now this next one I am fascinated by. I cannot remember for the life of me if maybe one of you guys told me about this to do it in a podcast, or maybe I just heard about it when it was happening. This happened in 2019. Maybe I read it somewhere. Who knows? But this is the cheese music taste test. Now, all cheese is milk, salt, bacteria, good bacteria, and some enzymes. That is the basis of all cheese. Adding different things, doing things in a different way, different lengths of time to age it. That's where we get all these different, beautiful, amazing cheeses. But it's pretty much all starting from those four components. Now, with this information, in 2019 at Bern University in Switzerland, some researchers started thinking, and they said, it seems like a lot of things can impact cheese. I wonder if music could. I wonder if we played different music for different cheeses, they would taste different and turn out different. Let's give it a shot. So they reach out to a Swiss cheesemaker. He wasn't only making Swiss cheese, but he happened to be Swiss and is a cheesemaker. And his name is Beat Wampfler, I believe. And they were like, hey, Beat, we love what you're doing with this cheese stuff. What we want to do is a little experiment. And Beat said, that's the tea. Let's go. Now, what Beat did next was make 9 identical 22-pound wheels of Emmental cheese. Emmental is a relatively mild cheese. It's a little fruity, and he figured this would be a perfect place to start the experiment, a nice blank canvas. Now, what they did was give each one of these cheeses their own individual aging chamber so that it wouldn't be interrupted by the other music for the other cheeses. So what happens next is Beat Wampfler and the researchers put the individual wheels of cheese into their own aging chambers for 6 months. During these 6 months, they each got played one song on loop the whole entire time, the whole 6 months. Here are those songs. One was The Magic Flute by Mozart, which was the classical cheese. One was Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin, which was the rock cheese. One was Jazz We Got by A Tribe Called Quest, which is the hip hop cheese. And one got played UV by Viral, I believe, which was the techno cheese. And then we had one control silent cheese that got played no music. We have these 4 cheeses being aged with music. We have one being aged alone so that we could taste if there's any differences. So now, of course, it's been 6 months. These cheeses have been aging with these songs playing on repeat forever. And it's finally time to do a taste test. Now, I want you guys to tell me in the comments below if you think that there was a difference or if you think there wasn't. And if you think there was, who do you think, which genre do you think had the best cheese aging methods? At this time, the cheese is done. They have a food research group come in to try the different cheeses. Now, there was an overwhelming vote that the hip hop cheese from A Tribe Called Quest had a much stronger aroma and a much fruitier flavor all around. Now, not everybody felt this way. It wasn't like, unanimous across the board, but it did get that response from most of the people, which I think is just so cool. It was quoted as being remarkably fruity in both smell and taste and significantly different than other samples. This was by the panel of food experts that tried the cheeses. And I just think that that's so amazing. Now, Wampler was very, very excited by this because he wanted the hip hop cheese to win anyway. And ever since, he has been getting calls to have cheeses aged specifically for people with specific genres of music playing as well. I wasn't able to find much on what happened after this experiment or if they, continued doing it with different genres or anything. But I just thought it was so cool that, music aged cheese in different ways. How magical is that? We're moving on to our next little crumb of history. We have 2 left. We're going to talk about the term, the hair of the dog that bit you. If you guys have ever been hungover, which I have not, and I'm definitely not a little bit right now, of course. Thank you. So the hair of the dog that bit you is a colloquialism, it's just like a little phrase that basically means when you're hungover, you should have, I'm not advising this. This is all in quotes. When you're hungover, you should have a bit of the hair of the dog that bit you so you can feel better. Which means have some more alcohol so the pain of your hangover is not as bad. This is not dietary advice. This is not nutrition advice. This is not me telling you to do that. It is me telling you that at some points in my life, it has worked though. And if you're like me, you've wondered why it's called that. So this is actually coming from an old-timey saying that is the exact same saying, but it meant something different. The hair of the dog that bit you originated because when a rabid dog would bite somebody, you were supposed to take some of the hair of that dog and put it in the wound so that you wouldn't get sick and you wouldn't feel the effects of the dog bite. Which I'm sure if it was a rabid dog, I don't think that's going to work. I think you might just be down for the count, but that's where it came from. So it comes from rabid dog bites. You're supposed to take the hair of the dog that bit you, put it right in that wound, and be healed. And for me, it consists of having a beer with lunch. Now, our last and final crumb of history is all about swallowing gum. You guys, how long does gum stay in your stomach if you swallow it? Yes, why did we all just say 7 years? Exactly right. I do not know how that messaging made it across the whole entire world, but it did. That's definitely not the case. Now, this is not me advising you to swallow gum. Chewing gum is exactly that. It is meant to be chewed and not swallowed. So it's not amazing for you, but it moves through your digestive system just like anything else would. It stays mostly intact until it moves all the way through your digestive system, and then you excrete it as you would with other things. There's no 7 years. There's no nothing. There have been some cases of kids excessively chewing and swallowing gum, and that can get sort of gummed up in your digestive tract. And so you'll have to go in and get that out. But if you accidentally swallow a piece of gum, you're going to be okay. It will not be in your stomach for 7 years. 10-year-old Irene is very happy hearing that. I fully believe I remember vividly turning 17 and I was like, oh my God, maybe that gum that I swallowed when I was a kid is finally gone. I believed this for a very long time. So if you did as well, this is me telling you that gum does not stay in your stomach for 7 years. You guys, this was such a fun episode. Tell me if you like these. I had a lot of fun researching it. I think there are a million things that are like this that are just fun little tidbits that I can share with you guys. And if you liked hearing it, I would love to make more of these types of episodes. Or if you have any ideas for some crumbs of history, if you're oh my God, did you know that, I don't know, circus peanuts or, I don't know, Maybe I am a little hungover. If you guys have any ideas for some crumbs of history, little tidbits, little food facts, leave them in the comments below. Please make sure that you like and comment and subscribe to this podcast and this channel. I put out 2 videos a week. One's a podcast and one is a food video. And it just means a lot to me that you guys are here, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have the most wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.